Just getting bits of fruit out of my teeth. I've been eating some persimmons. Hi everybody, how are you? Welcome back. Yes, I'm wearing my loadable shirt. I said that already. I said already. I don't need to say again. Just going to. Why is this image too small? I thought I made it the right size. Just bear with me and I'll make it slightly bigger because the reason I'm making it slightly bigger is because the white border on it bothers me. Yes, I could have cropped it, but I didn't, did I? Anyway, there we go. We're back. And thank you for that. Yes, loadable shirt. You can get your own. There are 3 different designs, subtly different. Each shirt is a slightly different t-shirt. They're not the same design. Different designs on the same shirt, which is why the purple looks different for each one. The fonts are different, but the actual base t-shirt that it's on is also different. So go and get yourself one. This is very comfortable. I like it. PJ was actually saying yesterday when he saw it that the ink that they use or the paint that they use seems to be done particularly well because it sits on it or in it just right. Some t-shirt manufacturers, they do quite thick ink and it sits totally on top and then it starts to flake and go weird. And so far I haven't heard any problems for anyone about it. But with any printed t-shirt, don't leave it soaking for too long. Like, don't wash the washing, leave it in the machine overnight or for several days, wash it again because it was smelly, do the same again, and then hang it out, and then wonder why the lettering is sort of going weird and flaking off and things like that, because it will do that with most of them. There's almost none that it'll do that. That they will all do that, basically, as far as I know. And that's just the fact that the paint can't hold on to the wet fabric. If you leave it wet for long enough, it actually just lets go. Right, too much words about things we don't need. I've got things open in my browser I don't need open. I'm closing those. Yay, sorted. Oh, big news, big news. Stream Elements is not shutting down. I do have some screen caps about that just to show you. I will find them. I've got them here. I set them up before. I just have to find the right image to share. My overlay. Okay, turn off the overlay and then you can see them. Zach covered it today too. Yes, you'll see how I know this. So this is what they said about a week ago. Official update, we're in positive discussions with potential acquirers and working to find the best path forward for creators, customers and our team. We'll share more updates soon. We've spent over a decade building for creators and we'll do everything we can to keep supporting this community. That's because one of their staff members personally posted in a sponsorship Discord channel. This is what I've heard, allegedly. Something about, yeah, it's not going so good. They need the money. Anyway, so this is what Zach posted this morning. My time this morning. The times you see on here are my times. So this is 2:58 today. And Zach had said, Stream Elements update, CEO or Perry says they're not shutting down, are in conversation with a potential partner, have secured funding and will pay out creators over the coming weeks. Now this post here, which is an image that he has captured and attached to his X post, because that's where he puts a lot of that sort of stuff, is this one here. And this is one that I captured myself before I'd seen that Zach had also done it. So this, I'll read it out to you just in case you need to have the official words. And this was posted at 2:53 a.m. on the 22nd. Voice channel? Don't know. I really don't know how it was. VC. Hang on. 95 stream streak. VC. Sorry, VC. In my brain, I'm going to voice channel first, and then I'm realizing he's talking about his streak. His streak is 95. I think VC is correct for that. Official update for our community. We are not shutting down. Stream Elements is in conversation with an amazing partner aligned around one thing: working in the interest of creators and the community. Your tools and data are safe, because people have been scrambling to figure out how they can hold on to their, not just their information, but the resources they've been using that have been based at Stream Elements. It's not a bad thing that they've been doing that. Anyway, we'll carry on here. We've secured funding while partner integration is underway, and pending creator payments will roll out over the coming weeks. I don't have any. It's not affecting me, but I do know there's a lot of people who do. For more information soon, I'm sure you'll like it, Perry. So that's one of the team, one of the head honchos over at Stream Elements. Don't come at me about it, who it actually is, because it doesn't make any difference to the life I live, nor your opinion of what's going on. You can check that information for yourself. So that's what they're saying. The reason I was saying is it's the people scrambling to look at alternatives and stuff like that is not a bad thing, is not because I want people to leave Stream Elements. Hi, Voidy, great to have you here. It's not because I want people to leave Stream Elements. If it's doing what you need and you have the resources available to use it and they stay up, great. But it's always a good idea when you're streaming to have a belt and braces approach where you can manage it. No, it's not closing down. I'll just put this image back up here for you. This was posted this morning. I understand that people have been changing over because they're not quite sure what's going on, but basically they have secured funding. They are re-establishing payouts for people who had payouts pending. They are still coming. That will be taken care of, and so people don't have to panic quite so much as what we were when we first heard about it. And that's actually from someone at shame for point. No. What I was going on to say was that it's good for us as creators, as streamers, to have alternative systems in place, either completely wholesale replacing something or finding workarounds for if something is not working. I've had, it hasn't happened very often. I've had it at least once, maybe twice, where Stream Elements has gone on the fritz while I've been streaming or just before I was streaming. Thankfully, yes, it meant that some of my commands weren't working, but, and also my overlay, which I can turn back on again now, but it was not the end of the world. Do not put all your eggs in one basket if you can help it. Have several different ways of doing things and then just turn on or off the ones that you want to use, or have it already set inside you that if such and such doesn't work, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's like my computer. When I was really, really, really worried about it, I'm less worried about it now than then, not because the problem has gone away, but just because I'm resigned to it. But when it was really being a problem because the fans were roaring all the time, and I was thinking it was about to fry itself completely, at that stage, instead of panicking, I mean, yes, it would be nice to have a go fast, flash, brand new, all-powerful computer to run so I can stream. But it wasn't the end of the world if it did die, because, I mean, not great, but it doesn't mean I have to stop streaming, because I would just go back to using my phone. That is how I started streaming. Now, I understand for some people it doesn't work that way. That if you're a heavy gamer and you have to have your games running because they're so intense and it's the only way you have set up anyway on your PC or whatever other device you're using, fine. I understand that's going to be a problem. Maybe just sort of step sideways into a different form of streaming. If you're someone who uses an avatar instead of you and you don't have a system that you can use on your stream for that, I don't know if there are those available or not, because I don't do that. Maybe do some IRL streams where you're not in front of the camera, but you can share something with people. Don't do it where you live. If you live in a city and you're not using your IRL name as part of your stream handle, if you are somewhere which has a really high population, go to another part of the city and share something. Maybe go to a park that you've never been to before and share what it's like, because you're discovering it while they're discovering it. That sort of thing. But find another way of doing it, staying connected with your community if you can. Not to burn yourself out, but just to keep that sense of continuity. And I have to say, when I've had, we had was it a power cut? I can't remember. There was one time where I couldn't stream on my computer, at least once. Since I've been on the computer, there was several times where I haven't been able to, and so I just used my phone. I went down to the other end of the house and used my phone that way, and we were good. It worked, and it was a good, refreshing reminder to me that it can be done. So sometimes it just means choosing something different to do. And if it's a long-term change, that can be part of the progression to whatever it is you have to do instead. That being said, stay away from slobs. So what Goriki's saying there is, I'm just going to go back over the comments again. Shame for Voidy. I'm not drinking to that, Voidy. I'm not. There's nothing wrong with you having changed what your setup and how you're doing it. Stream Elements helped me for shout-outs at least. Yes. Because I'm one of, like Anomalina, I'm one of the people who uses StreamerBot. Yeah, it can be a little bit complicated to get set up, but if you're on a PC and just do simple things first, it can actually work quite well. You can do it so that when you have certain people that you have chosen, don't do it for everybody, when they arrive on your channel, you can have it automatically shout them out. Now, I manually do my shout outs, and they are done through Stream Elements. I have some specific ones for specific people because they are part of my stream team, but generally, and others that I've known for quite a while, but generally speaking, it's not a good idea to have shout outs automatically run except for a few chosen people that they're for, just to keep things safe. So yeah, there are things like that which can be a little bit awkward for when you don't have access to the tools that you used to have, such as Stream Elements. There are other ways of doing them. If you like having a little video, a little GIF running, or an audio, you can use services like Blurp, where it's actually handled by that service. Or you can go the way I have and gone for something a little bit more technical and using StreamerBot. It is possible to use it in a very simple cut down version, or you can expand on it. And if you are a coder, if you can do C++, is it 2 pluses? I can't remember. You can actually code your own stuff for StreamerBot. And if it works really well and you like it and you've got it neat and tidy, you can even submit it to be one of the ones that's available for others to use. So there's all sorts of things. Yeah, shout outs are mentioned in the ModLearn videos. So that's really good. So the Guriki's comment about slobs, Streamlabs OBS, I think is what it stood for. They did eventually change their name. When they first came out, they called themselves Streamlabs OBS. It was meant to be kind of like a skin on top of on top of OBS to make it a simpler system to use. You didn't have so many components. You had a bunch of pre-built things, and you just chose which pre-built things you had. They had not got permission to use the name OBS. Now, OBS is open source, but you don't just promote what you are creating and you are getting funding for, because they do have a paid scheme that you can use to unlock extras. You don't do that and use somebody else's name as part of your name. That's called theft, because you are taking, and yes, it might be done openly, but you're taking something that is produced by a group of other people and saying it's yours when you use their name as part of yours. So that was one of the earlier things that people really objected to. So they went away from that and they just call themselves Streamlabs. They are seen by some people as in a much better, safer place now than what they used to be. I don't know. I've never used them. I'm not actually interested in being stuck within a fairly confining environment, which they can be, because things are modular. Things are, you add this option in or you add that option in. Whereas I like the fact with OBS, I keep pointing down because this is where my dashboard is, underneath the video window. I like the fact that I can create a scene. I can nest that scene within another scene and just turn that other scene on or off. Things like that. And so therefore I can have it in different scenes. I can be chatting here or I can be in my game scene, and I can have the same component in both of those, and I don't have to recreate it in the second one. Now, there are plugins you can use with OBS, such as Source Clone, which mean that it does that as well, but you have a few more extra functions. And that's one of the cool things with OBS, is the fact that there's a huge community of people who love it, use it. It doesn't just get used for streaming, as in Twitch streaming and YouTube and TikTok and Kick and anybody else streaming locations. It also gets used for in-house broadcasts in different businesses. It gets used by churches for sharing their sermons and various other services and messages and things going on during the week, or conferences. It gets used for running conferences. So many things. So it has a huge pool of people contributing to it. It's one of the things I like, is that, yes, it may feel a little bit overwhelming, but if you start simple, you start with just the things you need, and when you are trying to educate yourself on how to use it, you actually look at videos on YouTube or wherever you get your videos from that talk about starting. Don't go for the really complicated ones. Look for the ones that tell you how to do things when you are first getting going, and look for ones that are a little bit newer, because then you're going to be able to follow the instructions, because it will actually have the things that they talk about in the video, or it will still be called the same thing, quite possibly, all that sort of stuff. But Streamlabs, they're really keen to get you behind a paywall for a bunch of stuff. And they took a bunch of stuff from Stream Elements as well, the ideas of how to do different things. There's a lot of coding that apparently was lifted from one and plugged into the other without permissions, all sorts of things. It's an alternative to OBS. I know people who started with Streamlabs and wanted to do certain things in their streaming setups and got to the point where it was just so frustrating because they couldn't do it. They ought to be able to do it. They could see logically, I should be able to do this. But because it was stuck within a module, that's the only way I can explain it, they weren't able to do what they wanted because it didn't fit the module. And so they jumped ship and went to OBS. And yeah, they initially found it a little bit hard because they already had a path of how to do things in their mind, even if they were trying to change them. Whereas if you start with OBS and you start really, really, really simply, you don't do anything flash, nothing fancy. You actually learn each of those pieces and you learn them reasonably well. And then you can start tinkering and expanding. And a lot of those things you find that you're able to do. Just checking to see if there's anything else that I was going to say about any of those. Oh yeah, and it was a court thing. So ModLearn is really worth having a look at because we do talk in ModLearn about things like shout outs, having automatic shout outs. When you first come across the idea, sounds great, especially if you had some framework for it, some automatic guidelines and rules set up, like it has to be somebody who has come to your stream before. But the problem is that there are bots that are programmed to visit a stream twice, and if the threshold is 2 and they get shouted out on the second visit, you're shouting at a bot, you're promoting them. And people do, when they're watching a stream, they will click on another user's name, especially if they're shouted out, to go and visit them and give them a follow, because I like this person that I'm watching the stream of. Therefore, other people who are in their space are going to be lovely people too, or nice people too, or scary people too, because that's my thing, or whatever, and give them an automatic follow. And suddenly you're following a bot, which is not really a good idea. This message brought to you by Microsoft GNZ. Yeah, Goriki's saying it was a great GUI, general user interface. Is that what G is? The G in GUI? UI is user interface for noobs. I started on Slobs not knowing what they'd done. It's in just under a year I had stopped it, gone to Stream Elements, haven't used anything else since. Yeah, absolutely. Graphic user interface. Thank you. I'd totally forgotten that. So yeah, they pulled things from Stream Elements and from OBS as if it was their own, without acknowledgement, and yeah, caught. So it's not the same now, I know that, but it still leaves a bad taste in your mouth if you were around when you were hearing about all that sort of thing in the early days of when it was happening. And I fortunately had somebody I knew who was streaming, who's back into streaming again, actually, thankfully, who'd said to me, if you are going to stream, just stay away from that one. And at that stage, it hadn't even become apparent that there was a lot of that sort of stuff had been going on. They just sort of said, if you want to keep going, you will get frustrated because of the limitations of the system, the way they use it. Regarding having things set in little pre-packaged systems to use compared with putting things together yourself, the difference between Streamlabs and OBS, parallel, we used to have a system when we had boarding students who were still at secondary school, so they were underage, and so we had to keep a little bit of an eye on how they were accessing the internet. Data was really expensive over here, so they weren't going to be using mobile internet as a replacement or anything like that. And most routers or most modems do have a filter system in them that you can set up. It can be a little bit awkward. Each one has their own system. I'd looked at that and then found out that there was another thing that you could use that was effectively a plug-in for the operating system of your modem router. And what that did was, the one that's in your modem router package is usually a sanitized version. This is neat and tidy, and these are the things we think that you should be using. There are more options here than what we think you will ever need, but these are the things that we think you should use. And this other program that you could use actually gave you access to stuff that was built into the system, that was built into the router modem router, whatever way you want to call it, data that is actually available if you are a person who knows about coding and internal access and all that sort of stuff without breaking it, but just isn't accessible in these boxes that they tell you are suitable for you. There, it's all right. You don't need to worry about that. Leave that for the adults to deal with, sort of thinking in terms of what they said was available. And this other program was actually one which it still kept it looking nice. It used a good GUI, but it actually gave you access to different layers of information and controls you could set up. And it was a good education in using something like that to realize that what an organization officially presents to you for a tool that you're using compared with what is actually available can be quite different. This is usually quite shallow, and this has a lot more depth to it and tools that you can use if you know how to access it. And what this program did was it took it out of the hands of it just being the super experts who are network administrators with hundreds of years of experience, blah, 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 and actually said, look, you as a parent, you as someone who's running a household might need to access these tools, and this is how you can do it. And it was really good. So that's, to me, it's kind of like a parallel system, the difference between Streamlabs and OBS. You've got a system that says, this is what you can use, this is what you want to use, isn't it? Yes, just nod and say yes and do what you're told, that sort of thing. Compared with OBS, where you can add plugins and you can nest things inside each other and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I know it's overwhelming, but take it simply, take it easily. Right, that's enough of that. There was something else I was going to tell you, and that's relevant for where we're going in a moment or two. But first of all, let's have a tips video. Thank you for coming to my little talk. Who have we got?
Hello, and welcome to the stream. I'm Jev. Now, let's talk about our 6 things to enjoy the stream. Number 1, get your drink. It can be water, whatever you like, but, take care of yourself and hydrate. Number 2, when I hydrate, you should as well. Did you hydrate just now? Number 2, get snacks or maybe a whole meal. It depends on your time of day and your own habits. Again, take care of yourself. Be hydrated and eat what you need to eat. Number 4, get comfy, whether it's cooler or warmer, just something to cuddle perhaps. But be comfortable. That's also important. It's good physically and mentally. Number 5, have something to write with and write on. It can be paper, it can be anything you like. Memo, post-it notes, whatever you like. This advert not associated with post-it notes in any way, shape, or form. Disclaimer. Now, sit back, listen, and enjoy. Feel free to engage in chat. Do the puzzle over here or, down there somewhere. Play Jev Bingo. I do silly things like... I do silly things. Or you can spend pages and make me wear silly things like funny ears, like this one. Have a good stream.
Yeah, it's definitely Jev because they can't count. Right, so the other little bit is the thing that I've been noticing recently, and it's quite common with aging as your eyes change. Well, my eyes have been changing all my life. First they were getting worse, and now in theory they're getting a bit better. So as you get older into grey hair territory, you get more and more long-sighted, which if you're a short-sighted person is handy. If you're a long-sighted person, it makes it even harder to read, and you have to wear reading glasses. Now, reading glasses are easy to get from lots of places: the chemist, the department store, like the warehouse, all that sort of stuff, as well as going to an optometrist or an optician and getting them. So I've been noticing that, especially when I'm really tired, I find it hard to read things on my normal screen. Now, I do have my monitor a bit further away than normal. It is about that far beyond the end of my hand when I'm reaching out like that, which is a really good visual distance. A lot of people are a lot closer to make their monitor bigger. Now, if I went closer, it would make the words bigger, but it would make them blurrier because my prescription needs changing. It's been a few years since I had it last done. And so I've been finding it a little bit hard. And then on top of that, if I've got a device in front of me on my little book stand that I'm reading, you see me change the angle of my head like this, so I'm looking through the bottom of my glasses to see it clearly enough. In the end, PJ said, simple fact, because I was saying it'd be really nice if they had the equivalent of reading glasses, but they're for short-sighted people, not long-sighted people, because they only have the pluses for the lenses. They don't actually have the minuses, which is what short-sighted people need for the numbers. And so he said, well, why not just wear your normal glasses and just put some reading glasses over the top? Hubby uses reading glasses, just cheapies. And I tried it with a pair of his where one of the legs of the glasses had fallen off, so he was no longer using them. I wasn't pinching them off him. They were just going to be rubbish. But they were a little bit too strong. I was getting a little bit in my head with trying that. I was doing it when I was gaming the other day. In the middle of the night. And not good light levels also make it worse. So we now have Jev wearing what's his name from Up. If I want to see clearly. And man, it makes a difference to how well I can see what's on the screen without having to go like this to find the right distance, because my lenses are graduated lenses, which means that at the top part of them, it's for looking at a long distance clearly, and in the middle, it's for middle distance, like TV distance. TV is not the same as watching a computer monitor. Computer monitor is way closer than a TV. Nobody uses TV. Well, that's not true. But there's a lot more people who use computer screens now rather than TV screens. And then at the bottom of the lenses is where it is for close focus. And obviously my eyes have changed too much. So yeah, you're going to have to put up with me looking like, what's his name from Up, the movie, the grumpy old guy with my great big chunky. I do have some other ones. I got the weakest ones I could, which are a number 1, +1. And then I also got these ones, which don't look quite as chonky. But these ones are slightly, I tried to get ones that would sit, they look really weird. These ones aren't quite as bad for how they look on the glasses. But they're stronger. These are 1.25s. The other ones are 1s. And so the other ones are actually easier at the moment. But my eyes are changing at enough of a rate that they're probably going to be suitable soon anyway. So when we start reading, that's what's in store. I'm going to get to become one of these people who take their glasses on and off depending on what they're doing. I've been wearing glasses since I was 13. I did wear contacts for a little while, but then it got to the point where they changed the formulation that they used, and because of the protein levels in my tears, they would get itchy before the end of the day. And in New Zealand, they can do the 1-day disposables, but most people don't want to pay the price of that. They want ones where they can wear them for a week or a month and then dispose of them. So yeah, anything other than a 1-day disposable would actually be too uncomfortable because they get really, really itchy. And that's just not worth it. And yes, I do have a drink. Right, so I've got my water bottles here. I've got boat, I've got schooner, and I've got shame. You've got your keywords ready. Let's get reading. And no, I don't remember what flavour it is. I was going to try and take my drink sleeve off this, but the tape is going to need a little bit more work to get that off. I was trying to see what the label was. I know what brand it is, just not the flavour, because it's one of the parallel imports. So it's not like I can look at the New Zealand website and say, oh, it's this one. No, I don't know. Here we go. We are reading chapter 4 of The Rover Boys on the Great Lakes by Arthur M. Winfield. First published in 1901. Yes, and the edges, the legs of my glasses catch the legs of these ones and hold them up. So yeah, it's like in a tunnel, but at least I can see clearly now. And you can't see whether I'm looking at you or whether I'm looking at the book anymore with the angle of my face. Right. In the hands of the enemy. Last we heard, the Dick was in the water because the raft had finally broken up. And he's in the lake. Not good. I did post on social media and also in the Discord server a a picture of a sailing yacht and a sailing yacht and a log raft, nearer to what in my mind was the sort that they were talking about. So if you want to see what they are, go and have a look at those while you're listening. In the hands of the enemy, daylight found poor Dick all but exhausted. He still held to the stick of lumber, but his hands were numb and without feeling, and his lower limbs were in the same condition. I can't stand this much longer, was his dismal thought. I've got to let go soon. He looked around him anxiously. All that met his eyes was the broad expanse of water, with here and there a solitary stick of lumber. He gazed about for Luke Peterson, but the lumberman was not in sight. He must have been drowned too, he thought. Heaven help me, or I'll go. He must have been drowned, he thought. Heaven help me, or I'll go too. Gradually the sky cleared of the clouds, and the hot July sun began to pour down with a glare on the water that was well nigh blinding. So the storm has gone, completely past. As the waves went down, he changed his position on the log, and this gave him temporary relief. Soon the sun made his head ache, and he began to see strange visions. Presently he put out his hand, thinking that Tom was before him, and then went with a splash into the lake. Almost unconscious of what he was doing, he caught the log again, but he was now too weak to pull himself up. It's the end, he thought bitterly. Then a cry came to him, a cry that seemed half real, half imaginary. "Hello, Rover, is that you?" It was Peterson who was calling. The lumberman who had drifted up on another log, and as the two sticks bumped together, he caught hold of the youth and assisted him to his former resting place. So obviously, by what we've had just described, Dick had managed to get up onto the log and was lying on the log. But when he'd reached out, he'd fallen off. The safest way to be on one is as flat as you can so that the log doesn't roll and tip you off. Let's carry on. I can't hold on any longer, gasped Dick. Try, lad, try. Some kind of a boat is bound to appear sooner or later. I'm numb all over. I suppose that's true. I'm numb myself, but don't you give up. Encouraged somewhat by Peterson's words, Dick continued to hold on, and a few minutes later the lumberman gave a cheering cry. A steamer! Saved at last! The lumberman was right. The freighter Tom and Sam had hailed was approaching, the castaways having been discovered by the aid of a marine glass. That would be a telescope. A man and a boy, observed Captain Jasper to his mate. The boy looks pretty well done for, returned the mate. He must be the one that was thrown off the yacht. More than likely. As speedily as possible, the freight steamer drew closer, and a line was thrown out to Peterson. He turned to give one end to Dick, and then made the discovery that the latter had fainted from exhaustion. Poor fella, he muttered, and caught the youth just as he was sliding into the lake. It was no easy task to get Dick on board of the freight steamer, but it was accomplished at last, and still unconscious he was carried to a stateroom and made as comfortable as possible. So a stateroom is like a cabin or a bedroom space on a boat. When someone is unconscious and they're in the water, they themselves might be floating, but to get them out of the water onto a boat, or onto anything really, you're having to lift them up. Lifting someone who is unconscious is very, very hard because they're completely floppy. I mean, yeah, they've got bones, like this bone here is not going to flop in the middle of it. It's not going to whir. But their joints, they're not holding their joints rigid. And so when you go to lift something up, they're not bracing themselves to help you in any way. If you've ever had to drag someone for a fire drill as a practice, and they have been genuinely understanding their role of being unconscious, you'll find that it's incredibly hard to do. And that's without them being wet. And they are still going to have some muscle response to you because they're aware of what you're doing because it's part of the drill and you're thinking they're thinking about it. But when someone is completely unconscious, it's really, really hard to do. and then on top of that to try and get them up onto a boat. If it's a steamer, then the deck of the boat is going to be a little bit away above the water, and it's hard going. Like, you can put a rope around them and under their arms, but unless you can find a way to keep their arms down, they're just going to slip through the rope as you start pulling, because there's nothing to keep them holding it down. So yeah, it would have actually been quite hard work. It's exhausting being stuck in the water. It's in itself, it's exhausting. Let's get back to the actual narrative. He was carried to a stateroom and made as comfortable as possible. Peterson was but little the worse for the adventure, and his chief anxiety was for his friend Bragan, of whom so far nothing had been heard. So Peterson, because he's more comfortable and familiar with being on the lake, is more physically trained to being on the boat on the lake, probably has less of an issue with this. The coming of Dick on board of the Captain Rollo was viewed with much astonishment by two of the passengers on the freighter. Captain Rollo, Rollow, that's the name of the boat. These two persons were Arnold Baxter and his son Dan. I told you we'd see them again. We all knew it, didn't we? The two had quite recovered from the injuries received in the landslide in Colorado, and it may be as well to state right here that they were bound east in order to carry out a new plot which the elder Baxter had hatched up against the Rovers. He is so incensed, so offended by the fact that he had chosen to take something that wasn't his and was thwarted in that he's now decided that he has every right to do everything he can to disrupt things for them in whatever way. So there you go. We're probably going to keep getting them on and off through the rest of the books. I don't know. We'll see. Still getting used to these, obviously. What that plot was will be disclosed as our story proceeds, of course. Father, it's Dick Rover, cried Dan Baxter after having seen the unconscious one brought on board. Hush, Dan, I know it, whispered Arnold Baxter. It's a pity he wasn't drowned in the lake. I agree with you, but he isn't dead, and we'll have to keep out of sight for the rest of the trip. I'm not afraid of him, said the bully, for as our old readers know, Dan had never been anything else. Bully. That may be, but if he sees us, he may make much trouble for me. On account of our doings in Colorado, what can he prove? Nothing. Perhaps he can. Besides, Dan, you must remember that the officers of New York State are still after me. Yeah, he's still in trouble with the law. Yes, I haven't forgotten that. I wish now that I'd put on that false wig and beard before we left Detroit, went on Arnold Baxter. But I hated to put them on before it was absolutely necessary. The weather is so warm. Can you put them on now? Hardly, since all on board know my real looks. I'll have to keep out of Rover's sight. I'd like to know what he's going to do, what he's doing out here. On a pleasure trip, most likely. The talk went on for some time, and then Dan approached one of the mates of the freighter who had just come from the stateroom to which Dick had been taken. How's that young fella getting on? He asked carelessly. He's in bad shape, was the answer. Do you think he'll die? Hardly, but he's very weak and completely out of his mind. The hot sun coming after the storm must have affected his brain. Out of his mind? Doesn't he recognise anybody? No, he talks of nothing but lumber and cries out to be pulled from the water. Poor boy. It's too bad, isn't it? It is too bad, said Dan Baxter hypocritically. Do you know his name? No, but he's a brother to those boys who hailed us from the yacht a couple of hours ago. A lumber raft struck the yacht and the boy was knocked overboard and managed to cling to some timber. Is the man who was saved his friend? No, he was on the raft and the two are strangers. And with this remark, the mate of the freight steamer passed on. Without delay, Dan told his father of what he'd heard. Arnold Baxter was much pleased. If he remains out of my mind, we'll be safe enough. If he remains out of his mind, we'll be safe enough, he said. I presume they'll put him off at Cleveland and send him to the hospital. Wonder where the yacht is. Ah, we've left him miles behind. And how soon till we reach Cleveland? Inside a half an hour, so I heard one of the deckhands say. No more was being said for the time being, but both father and son set to thinking deeply, and their thoughts ran very much in the same channel. Just as the freight steamer was about to make the landing at Cleveland, Arnold Baxter touched his son on the arm. If they take Dick Rover ashore, let's go ashore too, he whispered. I was thinking of that, Dad, was Dan's answer. Was you thinking too of getting him in our power? Yes. I don't see why we can't do it if he's still unconscious. It won't hurt to try, but we will have to work quickly, for more than likely his brothers will follow us to this city, went on Arnold Baxter. The steamer had but little freight for Cleveland, so the stop was only a short one. Now I'm getting an itchy nose. It's really distracting having those glasses on, but it's much easier to read with. I was going to look at the map and show you. Let's see if I can pull it up. I actually did one which had some of the locations on it. I always find it hard to know how to find things like this. So you can create a map in Google Maps, but it actually takes you to a completely separate window to do it. And it's not always really obvious if you don't do it all the time. And so then when you want to find it, you go to My Saved Places, and then there's a tab there. One of the tabs that you have to go to. Let's see if I can show this to you. Display capture. Oh, look, we've got a picture. Yay. Maybe I need to put that one behind me so I can point. There. So if I go like this, let's see how far over that's going to go. Ooh. Oh, it's a full view, isn't it? Let's make that a bit smaller, because I can always zoom in. Actually, I don't need the clock on top. We'll leave it at this for now. So over here, this is, what about I just make it a bit bigger and then we can see what it is. Yeah, you were going to tell me what it is, but you are not. Come on, what are you? I'll bring the tab out. Buffalo. This is Buffalo, New York. There's Niagara Falls. St. Catharines, which is in Australia, in Canada, is over here. This dark line that squiggles and then goes straight, that's the border between the two. So we have Buffalo, and then we have, this is down the lake. This is Lake Erie. There you go. It says it there, Lake Erie. And this is one of the ones that has bad weather. And then you've got this location here, which is Cleveland. So the freighter, I don't know where it was coming from. I don't remember that in the story, but it was coming into Cleveland. So let's zoom out a little so we can see this lake. So they've come all the way from here down to here. Okay. Niagara Falls is in New York and Australia. We learn so much here. Yes, indeed, we do. Anyway, but yeah. So this is Cleveland here. And then this one down here, which we have not yet got to, is a place called Sandusky, which they talked about. The reason these places have been bookmarked by me on this map is because earlier in the actual story, they talked about places they were going to go to. So if I put this here behind me, I guess, and then you've got over here is... that one there is Detroit. And then that is Lake St. Clair there, that one there. And then if you come up here, you come around this lake, which is Lake Huron. Let's put the glasses on. That would help. That's what they're there for. Lake Huron, which is why it's got a bookmark in it. Why didn't I just click on it? It's the layers of glasses that make it do weird things. And then you come around here like this. And over here, this one here is, that says Milwaukee. Oh, there's Chicago. I think they talked about going to, not Milwaukee itself, but a place within it, which is called Whitefish Bay. Hi, Roxy. Great to have you here. And thank you for bringing your friends with you. It's lovely to see you. We're just looking at some of the places on the Great Lakes, what they're meant to be going to. Don't worry, just ignore the bit about chat quarantine. That used to be in place. We don't currently use it at the moment. Lovely to have you here indeed. Wayward Bard brought Alan and Bill the Dark, Sexy Sloth, and Roxy Burns book Twitch listeners. Excellent. Wonderful to hear that. Wonderful to hear that. And thank you so much for bringing your friends with you. That's lovely. Lovely indeed. So yeah, if you're here, you are, yeah, no, don't worry about that. We have a lot of stuff that just auto runs for moderation. Sorry, this is my new attempt at reading glasses because I can't afford to go to the optometrist and get reading glasses as well as progressives because they're really expensive in New Zealand. So we have a lot of things that auto moderate. Things like if you are saying something where the majority, like the big majority of the comment is just emotes and it's over a certain number of them in a row. I think it's probably like 5 in a row. If it's more than that, if it's just emotes, you'll get timed out. If you do everything in all caps, you'll get timed out, things like that. And these are actually settings that are available in Twitch. You don't have to do fancy things. You can set what the numbers are for those, like what the ratio is and things like that. But it's a way for small streamers who don't actually have moderators or their moderators are in different time zones and not currently available for them to actually still have their space, their chat space taken care of. But timeout just means that what you've already written is not going to be visible, but what you write after the timeout, which is usually very short, will be available. So not a problem. I'm too neurodivergent for those quarantines, LMAO. Yeah, as long as you're not offended by them, because I do know some people are. But it's lovely to have you here, everybody. We are not running the chat quarantine, which we used to do, which was just to get people who would be drive-by commenters, that arrive, they'd say something and then they're gone again. That's one of the things that some of the spammers do. They'll visit a whole heap of different streams. And we've also got Matsu Quinox is also rating with 7 viewers. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you too. Welcome everybody. We are reading the Rover Boys on the Great Lakes. They're kind of a non-detective early version of the Hardy Boys in some ways, with lots of different excitement. You need to update your icon thingy. Yes, you're currently on no audio according to your icon. All the readers, yes, all of them. It's wonderful. I love it. Thank you everybody for arriving. So I've turned off the map. We've just been looking at, actually I'll just turn it back on again. We're looking at where the Hardy Boys have been and where they're going. They have come from, yeah, it's right behind me over here. They've come from Buffalo, New York. They've gone to Cleveland, and then they're going to be coming up through here and then around and over to Whitefish Bay is their plan for their holiday for 6 weeks. Yeah, double digits indeed. This is amazing. It's because of my cool new glasses that everybody's here. It makes me look like a real reader. Yeah, my eyesight's terrible. Anyway, so that's what I've just been showing people that after having ranted and raved and rambled about a whole lot of other things. Just prior to both raids, Jev was saying Niagara Falls crossed from New York to Australia. Yes, she did. It's one of those weird things. Lots of connections with Canada, also lots of connections with Australia. So in my mind, because they are both close to me personally, not physically, but what they mean to me, sometimes my brain will just go, here's a word, use this one. Gotcha. You're on the readers list, Jev. It wasn't me who added you, but I stayed because you're lovely. Oh, thank you so much, Wayward Bard. I love that. I do appreciate it. It's good to have you here. Good to have you all here, and anyone who wants to make sure that they know when I'm live, just follow us. It's an easy way because Twitch will tell you when somebody is live. It doesn't cost you anything either. And it does mean that you get the use of the follower emotes, which I like them. I made them myself. I'm not a graphic artist or anything, but I like them. Just ignore the whole thing about you have to wait 10 minutes before you can chat. I need to do something about that, and I still haven't. We've had a little talk about the fact that Stream Elements has not yet gone under because they now have someone who's in the middle of sorting things. Back from getting food to see I have been sent to another reader. Hi, friend. Yeah, hi. Great to have you here. It's really, really lovely to have everybody here today. My accent is, oh, thank you, New Zealand. Obviously, with a username like JevNZ. So, yeah, you'll see that I star in a lot of my emotes. And I've used my own colours, which I do go off on a ramble about that occasionally, where intro video, that's a good idea. Just before that, emotes. If you're not a graphic artist, don't pay somebody else to do your own emotes. What you do is take some photos of you or things that are relevant for what you want to express, go into a really, 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 really basic photo editing app, like on your phone. You can isolate an image, you can take the background out of it, and then put an outline or a hazy color or something behind it. But make sure you're being really outrageous and over the top in the photograph. Or do things like my water bottle. And it's not hard to do. And you don't have to use money that you haven't got for it. This is my favorite emote I have. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Sent you the link in the whisper. Thank you so much. I do really appreciate that. I am just going to run a tips video. Now, we have a random selection of tips videos that have been contributed by the community here. I haven't yet made my own one because I usually do it myself and then I end up talking too long. So we're going to sit back, and here's ways to make the most of your time here, and then we'll get on with it. They're really short, by the way.
Oh, good day. We've stumbled across the raccoons and his stream viewing habitat. Let's watch as he learns how to better enjoy the stream and make the most of his viewing experience. Let's see. According to the video, there are 6 or 7. Number 1 would appear to be hydrate. We have our hydration right here. It's important to stay hydrated. It's good mentally and physically, and it's good for your vocal cords, other parts of your body, your mind. And that brings us to number 2. When the streamer does drink, you drink as well. Oh, what's this now? Oh, drinking. Drink. Did you drink now? Oh, you can indicate so by putting the water bottle emoji or thumbs up in chat. Next one, snacks. Ah, Raccoons has snacks. There appears to be trail mix and what's that? Carrot cake. Ooh, that looks yummy. Oh, I guess we can't have any. Number 4. Is to get comfy. Well, Raccoons has his lucky blanket right here, and Raccoons also has a teddy. Who can say no to that? Don't you have a teddy? Maybe a different kind of plushie. Being comfy is good for the mind. Number 5, something to write with or write on, because you never know when you might need to look something up later. We have 2 sizes of pads right over there, 2 pens in case one has really bad ink. Good job, Raccoons. Oh, on second thought, never mind. And that brings us to our final point, which is participate in chat. You can do things like type in chat, chat with other people in chat, use commands, play Jev Bingo. Raccoons has his own Jev Bingo card right here. You can spend pages and do things like forcing Jev to wear silly things on her head like headbands, crowns, unicorn horns, and perhaps one day even something like the one that's about to appear, if I remember correctly, unless it hasn't. Did it already happen? Oh, and you can make clips, you can submit quotes. Just try to enjoy the stream. Ah, there's another headband. There we go. So that should do it. Enjoy the stream, and I'm going to help myself to some of that trail mix. Or not. Ah!
And welcome back. I'm just putting that audio level setting down a bit. Yeah, he's a very amazing critter indeed. Oh, yeah, so one of the comments for elsewhere was, oh no. You've timed yourself out again. Thankfully, you still get to see it on screen. But in normal chat, it's not. Not a problem. We know why it's happening. We're okay with that. Yeah, so if anyone does want to be a regular around, who becomes a regular around here and wants to contribute, they're most welcome to do a tips video. There are 6 points that need to be made. The specific 6 points, they have been ever so slightly tweaked in several different directions, but there are certain things we need to cover. And then you can do whatever way you want to do those as long as it stays nana friendly, because that is part of the key to being in this space here, is that I don't care how much you swear in your own space. I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with people swearing or talking about certain things, but in this particular space, it stays nana friendly, because we want some of the people who are scared of the internet to actually know that there are places they can go and enjoy some fun without having to worry about something that they're just not used to and not scaring them off. Anyway, so let's carry on with this. We shall... glasses. Carry on reading. I don't really like having to put these on, but I do love how it's so much easier to read the words. The streamer had but little freight for Cleveland, so the stop was only a short one, and that was why we had the map up when you guys all arrived, because I was trying to show what it was, where it was they'd gone from and where they were going to. When poor Dick was brought up on a cot, still unconscious, Arnold Baxter stepped forward. That's fine, I totally get it. Wayward says, I'm being repressed, I'm leaving. Why is he leaving? Anyway, so let's carry on. Yeah, we do have a bit of a sense of humour around here. Sometimes I don't get something just because my brain is so focused in one direction, ADHD, that somebody will say something which they intend as funny and it just goes way over my head, or I take it seriously because my eyes are on something else in my, mentally. Yeah, I do realise that you're joking in that one. So yeah, if you ever make a joke about something and I don't get it, it's usually because my brain has not caught up. Oh, definitely the tism is part of it. It's ADHD and autism. The combination is a winner. It makes life so interesting. Let's carry on. So when Dick was brought up on a cot, still unconscious, Arnold Baxter stepped forward. I've determined to stop off at Cleveland, he said to Captain Jasper. If there's anything I can do for this poor fellow, I'll do it willingly. Wumba, yeah. Why, I thought you were going through to Buffalo, returned the captain in surprise, because the ship is coming through Cleveland on the way to Buffalo, which is where the boys have just come from. I was going through, but I've just remembered some business that I have to attend to. I'll take the train to Buffalo tomorrow. If you want me to see to it that this poor fellow is placed in the hospital, I can do it. The offer appeared to be a good one, and relieved Captain Jasper's mind greatly. You are kind, sir, he said. It isn't everyone who would put himself to so much trouble. I was wrecked myself once, smiled Arnold Baxter, and I know how miserable I felt when nobody gave me a hand. I suppose the authorities will take him until his brothers come in on that yacht. I can't remember which one's the son, Arnold or Dan. I think Dan's the son. There's no need to send him to a public institution. I'll see to it that he gets to a first-class hotel, went on Arnold Baxter smoothly. It's meant to be a hospital. There was a little more talk, and then Dick was carried ashore and a coach was called. By this time the freight steamer was ready to leave, and a minute later she proceeded on her way. Arnold Baxter and Dan looked around and saw only a few people at hand. In the crowd was Luke Peterson, who now came forward. Want any help? Asked the lumberman respectfully. This is the chap who had gone over the side, who was there at the time when Dick ended up on the log, I think. You might keep an eye open for that yacht, replied Arnold Baxter. All right, sir. Where are you going to take young Rover? To the Commercial Hotel. I'm well known there and could easily get him a good room and the necessary medical attention. Then if I see anything of the yacht, I'll send his brothers up to the hotel after him. That's it, returned Arnold Baxter. He turned to the driver of the coach. To the Commercial Hotel, he went on in a loud voice, and drive as easy as you can. Dan was already in the coach, supporting poor Dick in his arms. Arnold Baxter leapt in and banged the door shut. Soon the coach was moving away from the waterfront and in the direction of the hotel which had been mentioned. Of course, you're not going to the Commercial Hotel, observed Dan as soon as he felt safe to speak. Leave it to me, my son, was Arnold Baxter's reply. We got him away nicely, didn't we? Yes, but never mind the future, Dan. How is he? Dead as a stone as far as knowing anything's concerned? I trust he remained so for a while at least. The coach rattled on and presently came to a halt in front of the hotel which had been mentioned. Wait here till I get back, said Arnold Baxter to his son and to the coach driver, and then hurried inside the building. So this makes it look like he was going there for a good reason. Instead of asking for a room, he spent a few minutes in looking over a business directory. It's too bad, but they haven't a single room vacant, he said, on coming back to the coach. I've a good mind to take him to some private hospital after all. Do you know where Dr. Carley's place is? He went on, turning to the coach driver. Yes. Then drive us to that place. Again the coach went on. Dr. Carley's private sanitarium was on the outskirts of Cleveland, and it took half an hour to reach it. It was an old-fashioned building surrounded by a high board fence. Entering the grounds, Arnold Baxter ascended the piazza and rang the bell. A person, I don't need to say that word, Someone answered the summons and ushered him into a dingy parlour. Soon Dr. Carley, Karley, a dried-up, bald-headed old man, appeared. "And what can I do for you, sir?" he asked in a squeaky voice. We didn't get the squeaky bit, did we? Sorry. "Just the man I want to meet," thought Arnold Baxter. He was a good reader of character and saw that Dr. Carley would do almost anything for money. The doctor's sanitarium was of a shady character. Among the inmates were 2 old men put there by their relatives merely to get them out of the way, and an old lady who was said to be crazy by those who wished to get possession of her money. Ooh, some old writing bigotry, always fun to run through the modernised. Yeah, just a word that I have never really been comfortable with using. "I have a peculiar case on hand, Doctor," said Arnold Baxter, after introducing himself as Mr. Arnold. "A young friend of mine has been almost drowned in the lake. I'd like you to take charge of him for a day or 2. "Well, I'll pay you well for your services," went on Arnold Baxter. "You have him with you?" "Yes, in the coach outside. He was found drifting on a log and almost out of his head on account of exposure to the water and the hot sun. I think a few days of rest and medical attention might bring him around all right." The little old doctor bobbed his head. "I'll go out and see him," he said. Quarter of an his voice has changed every time he says anything. Quarter of an hour later found Dick in an upper room of the sanitarium lying on a comfortable bed with Dr. Carley caring for him. In the meantime, Arnold Baxter had gone out and paid the coach driver. "Do you generally stand down by the docks?" he asked. "No, sir, my stand is uptown," was the reply. "I'd just brought down a passenger when you hailed me, but I can go down for you if you wish." "It will not be necessary. The doctor has a carriage and I'll hire that later on when I see how the patient's making out." "All right, sir, then I'm off." As the coach passed out of sight, Arnold Baxter chuckled to himself. So he was making sure that if the sailing boat comes in with the other boys, that coach driver is not down there for them to find out anything from. "I reckon that was well done," he muttered. "I don't believe the Rovers will find their brother very soon, if they ever find him." I'm just going to catch up on chat, actually. Oh, bother. This is the problem with getting old, is your eyes change too much. Bart is saying to Sexy, "You didn't tell me you had an official Twitch emote." Serious sloth. Yeah, some old writing bigotry, always fun to run through and modernise. There's certain words I just don't like using. I never have, even back when they were done. Had to tweak Peter and Wendy because of some old stuff. Yeah, I don't specifically remember the things that were inappropriate in Peter and Wendy. I do remember reading the book, but then I probably changed a bit of phrasing on the fly anyway without thinking it through, just because I have a tendency to do that. I've been reading so long. What else? Just keeping... I keep it on the download. Not everyone has one yet, because not everyone has one. Yeah, definitely. I swear autocorrect's out to get... isn't it a pain? Goriki gets the giggles, I think. I hope he giggles about it instead of banging his head against a brick wall, because I'll send a message through on Discord and then have to correct it 3 or 4 times because my phone has chosen which words I'm going to use. I hit one extra letter and it changes the whole word. Like, you wanted this, right? No, autocorrect. I did not want to change because to goes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Indigenous people's phrasing is just like, the worst. Phrasing about them. It's just one of those things. It's never been great. 95 streams in a row, Goriki. Well done indeed. Chapter 5, The Sailing of the Peacock. Now, that's not the boat that they were on, so we'll find out, I guess. Let's just read it and find out what's going on. Oh, bother. I went and got rid of that. I usually have because we were looking at the map before and I was sharing the screen, I turned off the clock, desktop widget clock that I usually have on that screen, so it wasn't in the way. But I usually have it sitting handy because I grew up in an era when we used analog clocks all the time, and so therefore my brain thinks when I'm looking at a clock face, it relates to that time without having to know the numbers, just the general proportions of things, rather than having actual specific digits that we are relating to. Don't have to do any thinking about it when it's just proportional on a dial. And so therefore I have this thing where I just have a little digital version of a round analog clock sitting on my desk, and I don't have to think about it. I know how much longer I've got to go without having to do numbers processing in my head, which nobody needs that. So we'll stick the glasses on and we'll carry on. I was just checking the time. We've got 3/4 of an hour because I usually read until my 3 o'clock, and it's now 2:16. Yeah, hacking Orientalism. Oh, absolutely. Analog clocks that don't even have numbers. It's just round with sticks. Yeah. The one I've got has numbers at the moment, but one I had before that didn't. It's just the way it is. Your brain gets used to certain things. It's one of the reasons I wanted my kids to have, when they first got a watch, to actually have an analog watch rather than a digital one first, just to build that a customization, getting familiar with it and not having to think about it. Brains are weird, but they're quite amazing also at the same time. It's amazing what they can process and connect things together, dots they connect together. Chapter 5, The Sailing of the Peacock. Oh my, what a bad dream I've had. Such were the words which Dick uttered to himself when he came once again to the full possession of his senses. He gazed around him curiously. He was in a plainly furnished room, lying on the top of a bed, covered with a rubber blanket, so that his wet clothing might not soil the linen beneath. Well, we will say that that's what it's for, but if you're in a sanitarium, then it's actually not what they're originally for. It's not because everybody who's there has fallen in the lake and been rescued and is still wet. His coat and shoes had been removed, likewise his collar and tie, but that was all. The shades of the 2 windows of the room, were tightly drawn, and a lamp on the table lit up the room but dimly, for it was now night. No one was present but the sufferer. Well, one thing is certain, I didn't drown after all, he went on. Then he tried to sit up, but fell back exhausted. He wondered where he was and if Tom and Sam were near, and while he was wondering, he fell into a light sleep, which did a great deal toward restoring him to himself. When Dick awoke, he found Dr. Carley at hand, ready to give him some nourishing food. The doctor had just come from a long talk with Arnold Baxter. Oh dear. And it may as well be stated that the 2 men understood each other pretty thoroughly. "Where am I?" he asked in a fairly strong voice. "Safe," said the doctor soothingly. "Here, take this. It'll do you a whole lot of good." "Are my brothers around?" "We'll talk later, after you're stronger." And we've got this weird voice because somewhere along the line in that previous chapter that told us that he had a, I don't know, weird voice. My brain interpreted it as higher weird. The old doctor would say no more. Dick took the medicine offered and did really feel stronger. Then a light breakfast was brought in, of which he partook readily. The food gone, the doctor disappeared, locking the door after him, but so softly that Dick was not aware of the fact until some time later. While Dick was trying to get back his strength, the Baxters were not idle. Arnold Baxter had on his person all the money he possessed, a little over $3,000. This had been saved from the wreck of his expedition to the West, and he was now resolved to spend every dollar of it, if necessary, in bringing the Rovers to terms, as he put it. "I was going to New York State to get the youngest Rover boy in my power," he said to Dan, "but fate has thrown Dick in our path, and so we'll take him instead. Once he's absolutely in our power, I'm sure I can bring Anderson Rover to terms and make him turn the entire right to that Eclipse mine over to my representatives. It's a ticklish job, replied the son. What of this doctor here? Won't he suspect anything? I reckon the doctor is no better than he ought to be, Dan. I think I see my way clear to doing as I please with him. A couple of $100 will go a long way with fellas of his stripe. A conversation lasting half an hour followed, and Dan promised to keep close watch while his father went away to the docks. Arnold Baxter was absent the best part of the morning, but came home with a face which showed he was well satisfied with what he had accomplished. I fell in luck, he explained. Ran across a man I used to know years ago, Gus Langless, a sly old dog up for anything with money in it. Langless owns a small schooner, the Peacock, and he says I can have her for a month with the services of himself and his crew for $1,000 and nothing said about the job. Did you accept, Dad? Certainly, it was just what I wanted. Langless is all right, and I told him I would double his money if he would stick by me to the finish, and he swore that he would. And what's the next move? Time for the randomizer of appeal. Thank you, Joltaire. We're just waiting to see the wheel turn up. It should be here. By the way, hello, Joltaire. Great to have you here. And anyone else whose name I forgot to actually say anything to when they arrive. Top knots. We've got top knots. I do hope a certain somebody for whom top knots is their favourite is here today. Better take that one off. They better be watching. That'd be not that it's a waste to get these for Joltaire, but yeah, they would be disappointed, wouldn't they? Let's turn on the egg timer. Egg timer, where is it? It's down here somewhere. Turn that one on. And we're going to run that for 6 minutes once I get it started. That's going to run for 6 minutes, and once the 6 minutes is up, I will take them off. Yeah, I like these. These were ones I got just because I liked what they looked like. And I call them top knots because they remind me of little kids. Their mums, when their hair was just long enough, would put them into these little wee pigtails so that they stood up, the hair stood up on top and went out in this little fountain like that is. And it was called a top knot. And I like the colour as well. Right, let's carry on. Don't be distracted too much, please. Although if you're having fun, that's all right. And what's the next move? We'll take Rover on board tonight and then set sail direct for Detroit and Lake Huron. Landless knows an island in Lake Huron which will give us the hiding place we want. And after that, I'll send a letter to Anderson Rover, that's the Rover Boys' father, which will sicken him to the heart and make him do just as I demand. He thinks the world of his oldest son. Good for you, Dad. You've got a long head on your shoulders. And when are you going to let Dick Rover know he's in our power? Excellent. That's good news. Not until we have him on the Peacock, if I can prevent it. If he knew here, he might kick up a big row. Pah, we could easily shut him up, sniffed. What was I doing? Oh, yes, the book. Exactly. Sorry about the fact that often the emotes from other places don't come through. We've also got a thing about not doing the BT TV and Frankerface and what are the last one, I can't remember what it's called, emotes, just because of having seen them be used specifically for bullying way too much. And so I've just put a blanket ban on them on my channel. Yeah, no worry about it. The quotation mark broke the fact that it was going to work. So you've put the correct one there. That's excellent. Thank you. Now Dick was in their custody. He was impatient to browbeat the youth and taunt him with his helplessness, but Arnold Baxter would not listen to it, so the graceless son had to bide his time. The afternoon was an anxious one for both of the Baxters, who were afraid that the Rovers would find their way to Dr. Carley's place and thwart their carefully arranged plan. I have no idea why they would think that the Rovers were going to turn up there. But no one put in an appearance, excuse me, and by nightfall everything was in readiness for the departure. The doctor had loaned his private turnout, travelling contraption, and for a consideration, otherwise a bribe, had dosed poor Dick into semi-unconsciousness and had promised to say to all comers that the young man had got well and gone off in the company of two of his friends, a Mr. Arnold and a Mr. Daniels. Arnold Baxter and Dan Baxter. When it came to transferring Dick to the carriage, Arnold Baxter put on the false wig and beard which he had been carrying in his valise, thus transforming his appearance greatly. Dan kept out of sight on the seat of the carriage so that Dick saw only his back in the gloom of the night. The son drove while Arnold Baxter held Dick. It was no easy matter to find the location of the Peacock, and equally difficult to get Dick on board without observation, but Captain Langless had wisely sent his men to a neighbouring saloon, so the coast was tolerably clear. Once Dick was in the cabin, Arnold Baxter left him in Dan's charge and hurried back to the sanitarium with the turnout. In the meantime, Captain Langless summoned his sailors and told them that they would sail at early dawn, 4:30. Locking the door of the cabin and putting the key in his pocket, Dan Baxter turned up the light and then looked at Dick, who lay half propped up in a chair. "I guess I'll wake him up," he muttered, and going over to the helpless youth, he pulled his nose vigorously. "Oh!" groaned Dick and opened his eyes dreamily. Then he caught sight of Dan and stared as if he'd seen a ghost. "Dan Baxter," he said slowly. "Can it be possible?" "Yes, it's me," replied the bully with small regard for grammar. We wouldn't think anything of it now. "Do you know that you're in my power, Dick Rover?" I thought you were dead." And Dick closed his eyes again, for it was next to impossible for him to arouse himself, because he's been drugged, hasn't he? "I'm a long way from being dead," laughed Dan harshly. "I reckon you'll die before I do." Dick pulled himself together with a great effort. "Then the landslide didn't catch you?" he questioned. "Yes, it did, but it didn't kill me, nor my father either. We're both here, and you're absolutely in our power." "Is this the steamer that took me on board?" "No, this is a boat that's under my father's command." "I don't understand it at all." "Reckon you'll understand before we're done with you. You thought you could crow over us, but the crowing will be on the other side of the fence now." "What are you going to do with me?" "You'll find out soon enough." "Where are my brothers?" "I don't know, and I don't care." "Well, I'm glad they're not in your power," returned Dick with something of a sigh of relief. "One of you is enough," growled Dan. "Oopsie, oops. There you go, time's up. Better turn that off because it's probably being very noisy. Not as noisy as it used to be. I think I had it turned down. There you go. And we'll pop that one away and carry on. "One of you's enough," growled Dan. "And you won't tell me what boat this is?" "It's one under the command of my father." "Are we sailing?" "Not yet, but we will be in a few minutes." With an effort, Dick arose to his feet. But he was dizzy from the effects of the dose administered by the doctor and immediately sank back again. Baxter gave a brutal laugh. "Now you see how it is," he observed. "You're absolutely in our power. How do you like the situation?" "How should I like it? A lamb among wolves would be as safe, to my way of thinking." "I don't know but what you're right. We intend to make a big thing out of you, Dick Rover." "How?" "I told you before, you'll find out soon enough." "I presume you'll try to make my father ransom me or something like that." "We'll about make him give up that mining claim." "You were going to make him give that up before." "Well, we won't trip up this time. Our plans are carefully laid." You always were good at bragging, Dan Baxter. Oh, don't insult me, Dick Rover. I'm telling the plain truth. With a sudden darkening of his face, Dan Baxter strode forward. Dick Rover, I hate you, always have hated you, and always will hate you. Take that for your impudence. He struck out and slapped the helpless boy heavily upon the cheek. Then, as Dick sank back in the chair, he turned and left the cabin, closing and locking the door after him. At 4:30 in the morning, the Peacock got under way, and in less than an hour was far out upon the broad waters of Lake Erie. There you go. That's the end of the chapter. I'm going to have a mouthful of my drink while I'm turning pages. Hunting for Dick is the next chapter, so it's going to be following the other brothers as they try and find out what happened to him. Right. Just thinking if there's anything else I needed to be addressing. No, I think that's it. Glasses on again. I really should get some of, I prefer the look of these, although these were a good way to pretend that serious glasses. See if I can get some ones that are even thinner looking than this, but at a number 1 rating. I got 2 different power ratings just to sort of see which ones were going to be the best for what I was doing. And I might see if I can get some of the other ones. Chapter 6, Hunting for Dick. Dick must be drowned. It was Tom who spoke, addressing Sam and Alec Pop. Alec Pop is effectively their servant. He's doing the cooking on this trip. He's an African American who used to work at the school and now works for their uncle and aunt on the farm, but is also on this trip with them, helping out. So that's Alec Pop. For hours they searched among the floating lumber for some sign of the missing one, and the only thing that had been found was Dick's cap, caught in a crack in one of the timbers. So usually when a log raft breaks up, it's going to cause all the logs to be scattered around and pushed around. You've got to be really, really careful in a boat when you're moving around this sort of stuff, because if the logs have any movement to them at all, they're quite heavy and they're in a material that takes a while to stop things, the water. So if one comes end on at your boat and you haven't seen it and you run into it, you've got the speed and force of that and the speed and force of the boat coming towards it, and you can end up with the boat being broken and sinking. So they're going to have to be really careful with what they're doing. Assuming that they are. I tried to find a picture of the sort of boat that they're likely to be on and the sort of size it is. It's a lot bigger than what you expect. But I could only find ones that were a lot smaller and a lot bigger. So I couldn't share one with you. Otherwise I would have. It's awful, murmured Sam. His face was white and he was ready to cry, for Dick was very dear to him. Perhaps that steamboat done pick him up, suggested Pop. He wanted to say something comforting. Oh, yeah, I'm not quite reading it literally what Pop was saying, Alec Pop, because it's the stylized, this is what a person of colour would say, when in actual fact, usually what I'm doing is taking some of the words in there and putting it into just someone who has not received a good education and has basically just been scraping by. Use of language. A bit like the bad guys, just because. He would, so Pop had said perhaps the steamboat picked him up. I pray to heaven she did, murmured Tom. I suppose the best thing we can do now is steer for Cleveland. Yes, that's the only hope left, answered Sam. If he was floating around here, we'd surely have spotted him before this with the glass, that's the telescope. The course was changed, and toward nightfall they came in sight of Cleveland and learned where they could tie up, at a spot close to where the steamer had made her landing. Their first inquiries were at this point, and from a longshoreman they quickly learned that 2 persons had been picked up by the steamer, a big man and a young fellow. It must be Dick, cried Sam. Where did they take the young fellow? Questioned Tom. A man and a big boy came from the steamer and took charge of him, answered the longshoreman. Don't you know where they went? No, most likely to the hospital. The young fellow was in pretty bad shape. They got in a coach. Did the other man who was saved go along? Nah, he's all right and he's round here looking for you folks, so he told me. Here he comes now. The longshoreman pointed to Luke Peterson, who just appeared at the upper end of the dock. Both Sam and Tom ran to meet him. So you're Dick Rover's brothers, said Peterson as he shook hands. Glad to know you. Yes, your brother's all right, though mighty tucked out by the exposure. He fell in with a couple of friends on the steamer and they took him up to the commercial hotel. So Peterson was as curious to know how Dick was faring, he agreed to accompany Sam and Tom to the hotel, and all three boarded a handy streetcar for that purpose. I wish to see my brother, Dick Rover, said Tom to the clerk at the desk. Not stopping here, sir, was the reply after the clerk had consulted the register. I mean the young man who was hauled out of the lake and brought here feeling rather sick. The clerk shook his head. No such person here. Sam and Tom stared in astonishment and then turned to the lumberman. The friends who were with him said they were going to bring him here, said Luke Peterson, and I promised to send you after him as soon as I spotted you. I don't understand, began Tom, and then turned swiftly to Sam. Can this be some of Arnold Baxter's work? It may be. Mr. Peterson, how did the man who was with my brother look? As well as he could, Luke Peterson described Arnold Baxter and also Dan. Tom gave a low whistle. I'll wager poor Dick has fallen into the hands of the enemy, he cried. What enemy? Questioned the lumberman. In as few words as possible, Tom and Sam explained the situation, concluding by saying that they had discovered Arnold Baxter on the steamer. The story made Luke Peterson look very grave. Reckon we let your brother get into the wrong hands, he observed. The question is, where did they take Dick? That's so. Where? Evidently they didn't come here at all. Perhaps if I could find that coach driver, I might learn something. That's so. Let us find him by all means. But to find the driver was not easy, and by midnight the search was abandoned. Much dejected, Sam and Tom returned to the Swallow. That's the boat that they're on. And Luke Peterson accompanied them. Peterson was also downhearted, having heard nothing of the tug which had been towing the lumber raft, or of his friend Bragan. I was just hoping that the author was going to actually acknowledge the fact that he's lost someone too. I'll notify the police in the morning, said Tom, and did so. He also sent a telegram to his father, telling of what had happened. The police took up the case readily, but brought nothing new to light. I'm going to interview every cabbie in town, said Tom, and proceeded to do so, accompanied by Luke Peterson and Sam. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon they found the coach driver who had taken Dick from the dock. The man said they had no rooms vacant at the commercial hotel, said the coach driver, so he had me drive the party to Dr. Carley's private sanitarium. Where's that? On the outskirts, about a mile and a half from here. Can you take us there now? Sorry, but I've got a job in a quarter of an hour. We'll pay you double fare, put in Sam. Get somebody else to do that other job. Yeah, because usually it's a matter of, I've got this commitment, but the commitment to that is because it's going to give me guaranteed income because I know that I'm going to get paid for it. If you can get somebody else to do that work and you're still getting paid, good. To this the coach driver readily agreed, but to make the arrangement took time, and it was 6 o'clock before they were on the way to Dr. Carley's place. When they reached the sanitarium, they found the building dark, with the shutters on the ground floor tightly closed. Dr. Carley answered Tom's summons in person. Yes, the parties were here, he said smoothly, but I could not accommodate them, so they went elsewhere. Elsewhere? Echoed Tom. Exactly, sir, but our coach driver says they got off here. He was the one who brought them. At this announcement, the face of the physician changed colour for an instant, but he quickly recovered himself. Well, they did get off here as the sick man wished to rest. When I said I couldn't accommodate them, the older man went off and got another coach, and all three went off in that. To where? I do not know, although I recommended the General Hospital to them. They did not go to any of the city institutions. Then perhaps they went to a hotel. We have inquired at every hotel in town. The little old doctor shrugged his bony shoulders. I'm sorry, but I can give you no further information. How was the sick young man when he was here? He didn't appear to be very sick. Had he been bad, I would certainly have done more for him. And you haven't the least idea where they went to? I have not. It's mighty strange, was Tom's blunt comment. Do you know who the sick young man was? I haven't the slightest idea. I never ask questions unless they're necessary. He was my brother, and those fellows who had him in charge are his enemies and up to no good. Indeed, and Dr. Carley elevated his shaggy eyebrows in well-assumed surprise. I am bound to find my brother, and if you know anything more, you had better tell me, went on Tom bluntly. The random shaft struck home, and the old doctor started back in dismay. Why, surely you do not suspect me of anything wrong, he stammered. I want to get at the truth. Which way did they go when they drove off? Directly for town. And when was this? Inside of half an hour after they got here. Did they give any names? I wouldn't have thought it was half an hour because it talked about him going to sleep again. No, it was not necessary since I could not take them in. Your place doesn't seem to be very crowded. At this the physician glared angrily at Tom. Boy, it seems to me that you're growing impudent, he cried. I'm not accustomed to being addressed in this fashion. I think I'd better bid you good night. The two were standing in the hallway, and now the doctor opened the door to signify that the interview was over. All right, I'll go, muttered Tom, but I'm going to get to the bottom of this affair. Don't you forget that. And then he hurried out and rejoined Sam and Peterson at the coach. He may be telling the truth, said the coach driver on hearing what Tom had to say, but all the same I was driving around these streets for a good hour after I left here, and I saw no other rig with those men and your brother in it. I'm inclined to think that the doctor is humbugging us, answered Tom, but the thing is to prove it. Perhaps you'd better watch the place for a while, suggested the lumberman. Do you know anything of this doctor? What sort of a reputation he has? Asked Sam of the driver. His reputation is none of the best, was the answer. He's been in court twice because of the people he treats. Well, he wouldn't be above helping Arnold Baxter if he was paid for it, said Tom. All entered the coach and drove off around the nearest corner. Then Tom and Sam got out and walked away, intending to come up to the rear of the sanitarium. Presently a carriage appeared in view, driven by a man who, in the gloom, appeared strangely familiar despite his false beard. Arnold Baxter, cried Sam. Hi there! Whoa! He ran toward the carriage and caught the horse by the bridle. Tom followed, and the man who was just returning from taking Dick to the Peacock was brought to bay, because he was returning the doctor's carriage. Chapter 7, The Escape of Arnold Baxter, because, we haven't got far enough through the book yet to have him staying constrained. Arnold Baxter, where's my brother Dick? Demanded Tom as he reached the carriage and caught the evildoer by the arm. To say that Arnold Baxter was astonished would be to put it altogether too mildly. He was completely dumbfounded. You, he said slowly, hardly knowing how to speak after he'd caught his breath. Yes, you rascal, where's Dick? Dick? Yes, Dick. I know nothing of your brother. This is a complete surprise. I didn't know you were in Cleveland. Perhaps not. But let me tell you that we know your game and we're going to hand you over to the law. Never! Arnold Baxter fairly hissed out the words. Let go of that horse, the latter words to Sam. Don't you do it, cried Tom, and then he caught Arnold Baxter by the leg. Come out of the carriage. A fierce struggle ensued, and afraid that Tom would get the worst of it, Sam set up a loud shout for help. You whelp, I'll fix you, stated Arnold Baxter, catching up the whip. He struck at Tom with the butt end. He caught the youth directly over the head, and Tom went down as if shot. Let Tom alone! Screamed Sam. Help! Help! Who is it? Came from a distance, and Luke Peterson hove into sight. Hello, the man we're after. He made a dive for Arnold Baxter, but the latter was too quick for him, and leapt from the opposite side of the carriage to the ground. The horse now became frightened and set off on a run. directly for a lane behind Dr. Carley's institution. We have an illustration. Nah, need that. Just have to find it. Illustration. We got up to that. Oh yeah, we talked about stream elements is not shutting down, they are being bought. There you go. There's Tom on the ground. There's Baxter. There's his whip, the handle in his hand and the trailing end, and there's Sam being distracted and not holding on to the horse. There you go. Tom, are you badly hurt? Questioned Sam, but even as he spoke, Tom tried to stagger to his feet. Seeing this, Sam began to chase after Baxter, with the lumberman beside him. Arnold Baxter was fleet of foot, and realizing what capture meant, a return to prison with his sentence to be served once more from the beginning, he ran as never before, straight for the dock where the Peacock lay. His first thought was to board the schooner and set sail out into the lake, but a second thought convinced him that this would be unwise. They'll follow me on a tug or a steamer, and the jig'll be up in no time, he said to himself. I must find some hiding place. Many of the docks were enclosed by high board fences, and coming to one of these, he leapt over and made his way to a huge pile of merchandise. Here he crouched down and kept as quiet as a mouse. Sam and Peterson, followed by Tom, traced him to the fence, but once on the opposite side, lost all track of the rascal. He's gone, said Tom after running hither and thither on the dock. He's given us the slip nicely. He can't be far off, returned Sam. I believe he was bound for the doctor's sanitarium when we spotted him. So do I. I wouldn't wonder if poor Dick's at the place, a prisoner. The matter was talked over for several minutes, and the two brothers decided to return to Dr. Carley's sanitarium. The lumberman said he would remain around the docks on the lookout for Arnold Baxter. If you catch him, I'll give you $50, said Tom. My father, I know, will pay the amount willingly. I'll do my best, answered Peterson. He was by no means rich and glad enough of a chance to make such a sum. Besides this, the ways of the Rover Boys appeared to please him. When Sam and Tom returned to the doctor's place, they found the coach driver still at hand, he having caught Arnold Baxter's horse at the entrance to the lane. Take him to the stable and ask the doctor if the rig is his, said Tom, and the coach driver agreed. He was gone the best part of a quarter of an hour. The doctor says it's his horse and carriage, but he also says he didn't know the turnout was out, he announced with a grin. He's an oily one, he is. Right you are, but he can't stuff us with his fairy tales, replied Tom. Do you suppose there's a policeman handy? There's probably one around here somewhere. I wish you'd hunt him up and bring him here. What you gonna do? Dare the lion in his den, eh, Sam? Right, Tom. That doctor must know a good deal more than he's willing to tell. The coach driver went off, and walking around to the front of the sanitarium, the boys rang the bell sharply. There was no answer to the summons, and then Tom gave the bell knob a jerk which nearly broke it off. A second-story window was thrown open with a bang. I want you boys to go away, came in angry tones. And I want you to come down and let us in, retorted Tom. I won't let you in. I've told you all I know, and that's the end of it. It's not the end of it, Dr. Carley. We want to know how you came to let Arnold Baxter have your horse and carriage. I didn't know the horse and carriage were out of the stable. The man must have taken them on the sly. It's not likely. Open the door and let us in. It'll be the best for you. Ha! You threaten me. I've done more than that. I've sent for a policeman. At this announcement, the old doctor grated his teeth savagely. He was much disturbed and knew not how to proceed. I was a fool to get into this thing, he muttered. It may lead to all sorts of trouble. I must get myself clear somehow. Are you going to let us in? Asked Tom. Yes, I'll let you in, but allow me to state that you're acting very foolishly, answered the doctor, and dropped the window. A few moments later he appeared at the door, which he opened very gingerly. You can come into the parlour, he said stiffly. We'll remain right here, answered Tom, afraid of some sort of trap. Well, what do you want? I want to know where that young man, my brother, is. The man who was with him said he was his nephew. It was a falsehood. Now, where is my brother? Honestly, I haven't got the slightest idea. What was that man doing with your carriage? I repeat, young man, I did not know he had the carriage. The old doctor drew a long breath, wondering how soon an officer of the law would appear. Of course, if anything is wrong, I'm perfectly willing to do all I can to set it right. My institution is above reproach, and I wish to keep it so. Are you willing to let me look through your place? So you think your brother's here? I do. You are very forward. I wouldn't do that. He's going to lock you up in another room. Still, to convince you that you are mistaken, you're at the liberty to go through my place from top to bottom, but you must not disturb any of the patients. All right, let us go through. Sam, you remain here on watch for that policeman. With bad grace, Dr. Carley led the way and took Tom through the sanitarium from top to bottom, even allowing him to peep into the rooms occupied by the boarders, as the medical man called them. Of course, there was no trace of Dick. And now I trust you're satisfied, said the doctor when they were again at the front door. I am not satisfied about that carriage affair, returned Tom as bluntly as ever. Well, I have told you. At this moment the coach driver came in sight, accompanied by a policeman. What's the trouble? Demanded the officer of the law. Tom and Sam told their tale, and then the doctor had his say, and the driver related what he knew. Certainly a queer mix-up, remarked the policeman. He turned to the Rovers. What do you want to do? I want to find my brother who's disappeared, said Tom. You say you've searched through here? I have, after a fashion. You can go through if you wish, said the doctor to the officer. I reckon my brother's gone, went on Tom, but this doctor helped the rascals who spirited him away. I did absolutely nothing, cried Dr. Carley. I am willing to aid you all I can, but I am innocent. I received no pay for giving the unfortunate young man some medicine to strengthen him, and my horse and carriage were taken without my knowledge. A long and bitter war of words followed, but in the end the doctor was left to himself. We'll make no charge against him yet, said Tom. Said Tom to the policeman. But I wish you would keep an eye on the institution in case that rascal puts in an appearance again. I will, returned the officer. A little while later, Sam and Tom set out to rejoin Luke Peterson. When they gained the dock, they saw nobody. He ought to be somewhere about, said the young rover. They tramped about from place to place for fully an hour. Presently they came close to where the Swallow lay. Had they but known it, the Peacock, with poor Dick on board, lay but 3 blocks further away. My gracious, cried Sam suddenly. He'd seen a form stretched motionless across some lumber lying near. The form was that of Luke Peterson, and his cheek and temple were covered with blood. And that's the end of the chapter, and also the end of today's reading. There you go, folks. The next chapter, if you choose to join us for that, is chapter 8, and it's called On the Lake Again. So if you are wanting to, I stream 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, New Zealand time. So that's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. If you use my schedule, it will tell you and corrected for you the time that it will show. Will be in your time zone unless you're using a VPN or something else to pretend you are somewhere other than where you actually are. I will not ask. Anyway, so we'll find out more. I'm not sure how many chapters we have in this book. It's showing me that we are at about a third, maybe slightly under that. It's not a quarter, it's more than that. But sometimes the Stratemeyer Syndicate books have a lot of extra material at the back of them, and it affects the page count. So I'm going to see, not now, but I will at some stage, see if I can figure out how far through the book we are, or how many pages till the actual end of the book, rather than all the end matter being included, so that I can actually tell you more accurately. Thank you so much, everybody who came in on the raids, and thank you so much, everybody who was regularly here as well. It has been so much fun having you all here. I hope you have enjoyed yourselves. I know I have. I really enjoy it when there's a lot of the chit chat and all the other carrying on, as well as when we just get into the story and really enjoy it. Thankfully today, not quite so many rants about bad descriptions of boats sailing and other issues with being on the sea. Maybe because most of the time we've actually been on land. I don't know. If I was a horsey person, I don't know that there would have been anything too objectionable in today's writing. But yeah, last time, those of you who weren't here then, missed out on it. There was some quite serious objections on my part to some of the descriptions on how things were. Like I was trying to describe it to family afterwards that evening when we were at dinner. And I was saying that it went from the descriptions of the log raft being the picture in the illustration and also one of the references to it in the story sounded like it was one solid, like a floor of a building where they're all fastened together properly. And then it went from that and alternated with a bundle of logs all held together with chains, back to the solid thing, back to the bundle of logs. And it's like, well, which one is it? Make up your mind sort of thing. And also other aspects of their total disregard for safety at sea when supposedly they knew what they were doing. And when I found out how big the boat was, I'm thinking, like, with what they've told us about their experience, I don't really know that they should be doing this on their own. These 3 boys plus the guy who works for them, who's the cook. And sure enough, it went wrong. Seriously. So they're meant to have a month or 6 weeks away holiday on this boat in the lakes. Don't know how well that's going to go. It'll be excitement, but not necessarily good excitement. But it makes for fun reading anyway. So if you want more of the story, come back next time. As I've explained in other situations to other people, never ever come here expecting reading in the style of an audiobook. If you want audiobook style reading, I am not the person. I will not be offended if you go somewhere else to have a listen to that. Thank you so much, everybody. We are going to go and raid our commutation, who will be playing some music or reading books, but I think he's playing music. I'm not sure. Please go and say hi, have some fun, enjoy yourselves, look after yourselves, stay well hydrated, okay? Stay really well hydrated and look after yourselves, and happy reading. And yeah, copy the raid message so you can paste it in when we get there. We don't have too many capitals. We don't have too many emotes. It should work. But yeah, look after yourselves. Don't have a button, so I'll leave it to timeout. Yeah, no, that's right. I don't have a button either. But thank you. And thank you for being such a good moderator too.